So if you can push the approval. Did you get the notification that says like continue, that you know you're being recorded?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So hi, thank you for coming to my presentation. Today my presentation will be, it's called Mental Health Challenge. So we're going to talk about mental health since it's May is the Mental Health Awareness Month. And I want to start off by saying that I know this can be a really heavy topic, and I hope that this presentation allows you to have this a safe place to talk about these things. I'm going to talk about therapy. I'm not an expert on that, so I want to make sure to be completely transparent, but I hope that it allows you to have a basic understanding. So I said that I wanted to allow you to take a minute to grab a piece of paper because I'm going to have an activity later on that will help you if you have a piece of paper in front of you. Does everyone need like a minute to grab that? A minute to grab that, anyone?
I already have it. I'm good.
Okay, you're all good?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know why it's doing that. I'm sorry. Like for one. All right, I'm just gonna use this. Okay, so I wanted to provide an outline. So first I'm going to talk about mental health, the difference between that and mental health and mental illness, talk about CAPS resources. I mentioned that I'm going to talk about therapy, the different approaches and how that relates to today's students. And we're also going to talk about self-care. So I have a few activities, and there's also 5 types of self-care that I'm going to go in depth about. So the first point is mental health. So I'm going to be using this system. So if you can go to this website, I'll give you about a couple minutes and then answer this question. Nice. Great. Stress. Productive, prepared. Overwhelmed. Refreshed. It's nice. You have a different variety of words. Some people are feeling good and some people are feeling a little bit stressed. Hungry. Okay. You see, hungry is a big one. Entertained. About 10 more seconds to share some more of how you're feeling. Oh, it says that it's full. Okay. Well, thank you all. Would anyone like to talk about how they're feeling to everyone, or want to express more? You're free to you're welcome to do that. You can do that right now.
Yeah, I don't mind. Right now I'm feeling a mixed emotions. I have an assignment due next week, of 40 sources. 10 have to be annotated, plus I have to turn in another assignment on the same day. I'm feeling stressed, worried, yet relaxed at the same time because I procrastinate. So I was like, okay, right now it's not almost due yet, so I'm pretty chill about it. And plus, I'm distracted by everything around me, hence the procrastination. um, but yeah, as of now, even though I know that due date is on its way, that stress and worriness is kind of all the way at the bottom, and I'm keeping my entertainment and happiness on top, which I don't know if it's good or not, but that's how I am right now.
Yeah, so it sounds like a mixed emotions and like stress, but also feeling relieved and distracted. I want to say good luck on your assignments next week. It's good to also stay calm while being a little bit stressed out because it helps you when you're doing your assignment. So thank you for sharing that.
No problem.
Anyone else? If not, I can move forward.
Yeah, I can explain mine. I put drained. I just kind of feel like, I feel not necessarily like tired, like sleepy or like exhausted, but like more like my energy is like for the week has been gone. But I still have all these homework assignments due dates coming up. I have homework due Sunday, a paper due Monday, a test due Monday. So like it's all coming up soon, but it's still a ways away. But I feel like I already like used up all my energy for the week, and I'm just like dreading it. But like overall, I'm like okay. I'm just like energy wise though, I feel kind of just drained, I guess.
Yeah, and we're closer to the end of the quarter, so that can add to it. Well, it sounds like you're really busy. So thank you for taking the time out to come to this hour presentation. That means a lot. Anyone else? Okay. So first I want to talk about the difference between mental health and mental illness. So the words that I've highlighted are the words that I really want to focus on. So for mental health, it is the absence of mental illness. And I want to highlight too the ability to meet the demands of daily life. So if you compare that to the definition of mental illness specifically talks about medical conditions like depression, schizophrenia, panic disorder, while mental health is not related. It doesn't mean that you're mentally ill if you are somebody who has mental health problems right now. So those are completely different, two different definitions. So with mental illness, it's a disruption in normal thinking. So these medical conditions impact your daily life, your feelings, your mood, your behavior, your interactions, while mental health can do that too. It's more about the ability to meet the demands of daily life. So like I said, you don't have to be diagnosed with a mental illness because your mental health you're not feeling that well. That's completely two different categories of mental health in general. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, thank you. So as we're going, since we're talking about mental health, I wanted to provide a source, which is the Counseling and Psychological Services. So they offer one-on-one therapy, group therapy, and also couples therapy. For couples therapy, both of you have to be students on campus to be able to do that. So I wanted to make sure to point that out. And as I pointed out, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So they're having lots of workshops. I also wanted to show you the CAPS website. So this is how the CAPS website looks. They provide services outside of their own, especially right now with the coronavirus. So there's some in San Bernardino, Fontana, Riverside, and Palm Springs. They highlight that it's Mental Health Awareness Month, the location. And they also provide you some common concerns and issues discussed so you can feel possibly relieved knowing that there are other people going through that and they're able to help guide you into improving that. You don't have to pay because it's part of your student health fee. So yeah, and everything is confidential and private. anything you tell your therapist is completely something that they're going to keep to themselves, and you don't have to worry about them telling anyone else. So therapy. What are your overall feelings about therapy? You can answer in a full sentence, and I'll give you a minute or two to do that. And it's okay if you say something negative. It's completely fine to be completely honest about your feelings toward therapy, because there are a lot of stigmas about it. Anyone else need more time to provide an answer? Okay, that's fine. Is there anyone else, and is there anyone who would like to talk more to the group about their overall feelings about therapy and the statement that they put and why they feel that way?
Yeah, I'll share out right now. For therapy or regarding mental health, everyone's pretty different. So some people won't need the therapy, but some others don't have that type of like relationship with others. So going to therapy may help them get better overall. Like everyone's different, so it might not work for others, but for other people it'll help. If that makes sense.
No, that does. Perfectly does. I've noticed that a lot of people, some people talk about the stigma that they were conditioned to feel that therapy is bad, and that's really popular, especially among certain communities. So I grew up with one side of my family being fine with therapy and the other not being fine with it. So when I do go to therapy, I make sure not to share that with one side of the family. It sounds like other people are going through that. Worried about how confidentiality works in past experiences. So when I went to therapy, they told me like if you are super going to harm yourself, then they will actually they have to inform authorities that you are going to harm yourself. So I can see how someone would be worried about that, because it can stop you from opening up. But I hope that in the future that you find that it's fine to go, but I completely understand how someone wouldn't. But I hope that in the future your mind changes about it. I consider it resources for those who need it, definitely. It's hard to share to a stranger, especially one getting paid. Yes, that I like that someone pointed that out and was completely transparent with their feelings. It can be hard to share with a stranger, and I found myself before, when I first started going, I would kind of hold back what I felt. So I would like make myself look good, but I would never say that stuff that like negative things about someone or like myself, because it's kind of like, oh, I have to pretend like I'm okay, even though I'm in therapy. Like I can't let them know everything that I'm going to. So I can see how that can be hard to share. And one thing I'm going to talk about with therapy is that there's something called unconditional positive regard. And I hope that knowing that will help you feel more comfortable going. Is there anyone else who would like to share their experience, or would you like me to just move forward? Okay.
Yeah, I guess I'll share.
Okay.
So I think something that, well, I put two, it was like I was conditioned that therapy is bad, and then it's hard to share to a stranger.
Hmm.
So I guess on the first one, you kind of mentioned it, but certain groups, kind of like for me, was just my culture,
Mhm.
and then yeah. So I'm Hispanic, and usually with that, you really no one, at least in my family, no one really talked about therapy. And then if you did, it was kind of like that bad place. That if you're crazy, that's when you need therapy.
Mhm.
Um, and then also, I guess another factor um, would be just like gender roles. You know, me being a male, it's kind of like men don't share their feelings, so we don't need therapy. And even though like no one really says that, it's kind of implied.
Mhm.
And since no one really, at least in my life, no one has really talked about it. Like for most of my life, no one's really said much about it. And so, for me, I just grew up thinking it was like for I guess not for crazy people, but for essentially for crazy people. Even though I know that's not true. And then I had experience that I took a course for counseling, and yeah, there was a demonstration. And as I was watching it, it was very intense because like the person just knew everything with a few, just listening. And I'm like, that's scary.
Mhm.
Someone can just know me better than myself. And it just, I wouldn't say like terrified me, but it kind of scared me. Just trying to find out what I don't know about myself. And so it kind of pushed me back from, in that class, volunteering. But yeah, that's how I feel essentially about therapy.
It's like you're being analyzed, right? Like someone's pointing out something about you. And then in my past experience, it's like I am kind of guarded at first, like, okay, you notice this about me. I feel uncomfortable. Like, how did you know this? And so it's a process, and that's what I want to point out with therapy. It's a process sometimes to getting comfortable with it. You don't always go in there feeling 100% like I can share this out, and hopefully, and usually your therapist will notice that. If you feel you're not getting that respect and they are pushing you, you're free and you're allowed to change therapists. Don't ever think you have to stay with them because, oh, I'll make them feel bad. It's about what you feel comfortable with and what sources they're providing you. I've definitely had to switch therapists because I felt like I wasn't being heard or I was being interrupted. So that's completely fine to do that. Thank you all for whoever shared, and thank you, Evan, for sharing, and thank you, Ricky, for sharing your feelings about therapy, and thank all of you for being completely transparent about it. So therapy. So I'm going to talk about a couple, and it's like I said, it's very, it's not the best level of that. Like I said, I'm not a therapist, but I hope I can provide something that'll give you just a little overview of it. So psychoanalysis and psychodynamic therapies was created by Freud. So it's a close working partnership with your therapist and patient. If you've watched movies where someone will go to therapy, the conversations are not like that, but the fact that it's like one-on-one, you're in front of someone, you talk about your feelings, they're there to listen to you. Behavior therapy was created by Edward Lee Thorndike. It's about behavior. So I want to point out that behavior and cognitive usually go together because if you think about it, your behaviors and the way you think, they align. So for example, someone who has a phobia, it's about those compulsive thoughts while also those behaviors that stops you from, it makes you scared of something. Or like eating disorder, like those thoughts about food create that behavior where either you're binge eating or you're not eating at all. So they both go together. It's about thoughts and behaviors. So how that works is that sometimes they'll give you homework assignments to complete between sessions to help you. So a good example would be OCD. If you are somebody who is struggling with germ phobia, they're going to make it where you create homework to help you create those steps so you can stop having the struggle with OCD. It's a process. It's not always short term, but it's something that has been helpful for many people. So humanistic therapy was created by Carl Rogers, and this is where the unconditional positive regard comes into place. So the idea is that your therapist listens to you, they don't judge you, and that helps you be open, and you're open with them because they know that you won't judge them. Sometimes they'll also do role playing. So if you're having an issue with someone, they'll have someone in front of you. You'll both pretend like to be that person. So if you're, for example, bullied, they'll act like you're bullied. You confront them, and it's supposed to help you kind of realize that you can move forward from that, even though it's not the person right in front of you. Or to confront someone if you have a certain issue with them, whether or not it be your friendship or relationship, and you're able to feel that comfort because you had that practice with your therapist. And holistic therapy is a blend of multiple therapies. So I talked about how behavior and cognitive therapy will often go together. It's kind of hard for some people need more than one of these. So they need that unconditional positive regard. They also need that helping with their behaviors and their thoughts. They need that close relationship with their therapist. So it's about blending different elements from different approaches. Would anyone like me to elaborate on any of these types of therapies? Okay. So the source that I got this from was American Psychology Association. At the end of this, I will be emailing all of you a drive for each source that I have and where I found it. So if you want to look more in depth with that, and a few of the activities, I will provide those worksheets and a couple pictures that I have on here. So all this will be given to you at the end. So I was lucky to be given this by Caro, and it's about mental health and today's students. This was provided by the National Institute on Drug Abuse. It's a 2013 survey. So this is relevant, obviously, because we're college students. And so if you see, they highlight multiple things like fraternities, sororities, mental illness, and how that relates to drug use. How many people have considered suicide in a certain amount of months. Common problems with fraternities and sororities, and what experiences someone are bringing to colleges. So it's mostly about drug use and how that relates to mental illness and mental health. And this will be another image that I will make sure to send to everyone if they want to look at it more. So has the stigma against mental illness and therapy influenced you in any way? Everyone put their answers in, it seems like. So I noticed that first no was higher, and then it seems maybe some people switch their answers to yes. Is there anyone who would like to share why the stigma impacted them, or how their overall feelings and that, how it's influenced them?
Yeah. So for the longest time, in the past few years, I've noticed like a huge decline in my mental health, and how like just especially after my second year, I started taking on a lot more responsibilities. Like I started working, I started getting more involved on campus. I was just super busy all of a sudden, not being used to that, and like my mental health like completely took a big toll. And like I've always been the type of person that like, yeah, like therapy is good, like people should go to therapy, like, you know, like I never thought anything bad about it, but it was always like, oh, but I don't need it, like I don't need it, I'm fine, I can deal with it. So like I never thought like the stigma was like, I never like thought that stigma like influenced me, but it really did. And it wasn't until like I finally like pushed myself and allowed myself to like think that I know it's okay for other people to like go to therapy and all that stuff, but it's also okay for me to go. And that just took a long time, and then me finally just going, just even one, it like changed me completely, and like now I'm not like scared of going.
It's easier to give people the advice that you sometimes don't take for yourself. Like you mentioned,
Yeah.
like you can tell people to go to
Mhm.
therapy, but when it came to you, it's like sometimes you can
Yeah.
minimize your problems, I've
Mhm.
noticed. Or like I'm not on that level, and that kind of relates to that stigma. Like, what is the level of who can go to therapy?
Mhm.
You know, how Evan mentioned earlier, like you're crazy if you go there. So like, what's
Yeah.
the definition of crazy?
Yeah. And like how I was raised, it wasn't necessarily like people were against therapy, but I was raised where no one talked about their feelings. No one ever talked about going. So it wasn't like something that was said. It was just something that was like implied by not talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
So like I just felt like, oh, I have to keep my feelings inside. No one's talking about their feelings. That means I shouldn't talk about my feelings.
Yeah. And another, sometimes I don't know. I'm not saying that this relates to you, but sometimes when you did open up about your problems, or when you do open up about your problems, like you get shut down. So it feels like, well, like if I can't
Yeah.
even talk to anyone, then like
Mhm.
let me just shut down. I don't need to open up to anyone about my issues because no one's going to listen.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing with that one is stress. My parents are always like, what are you stressed about? Like, you're young, you don't have anything to stress about. When in reality, I have so much to stress about. And so I just feel like I can never say I'm stressed because they think I'm just saying that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Elizabeth, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I wanted to add on to what Valerie was saying. I think one of the reasons why I wouldn't seek therapy or didn't is because whenever I did have instances where, like Valerie had mentioned before, that where you're stressed or where you feel overwhelmed with things, there's people who insist that you shouldn't be stressed because you don't have anything to stress about because all you do is go to school and go to work. And it's unfair when people say things like that, because then it insinuates that because I don't have kids or because I don't play a role in the household, that that my uh, my well-being and my state of being are invalid. And I think that that should also be one of the things that many people need to be aware of, is that just because it's a different level of stress doesn't mean that it's not and it's not invalid.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, your experiences is not invalid. It's not a comparison to how much someone else struggles. So sometimes like parents are like, what are you struggling with? You're not on doing this, that, but it doesn't mean that your stuff can't be stressful. Even if it's a simple quiz for a class, you're allowed to be stressed out about that. You're allowed to have those feelings. And it's learning how to not let how they're trying to validate you get to you. And that can be a whole process. That's hard to get past. So if you are struggling with that, it's something that sometimes it's a journey. And I hope that like later on it becomes easier, but just know like not every journey is easy, and sometimes stuff takes a while to get past. But as long as you're taking those steps forward, you should be proud of yourself for taking that step to get past that. Anyone else want to share their feelings about the stigma? I also would like to point out that I'm talking about mental health and therapy. I still struggle with a bit of the stigma. I'm kind of like, I feel kind of exposed a little bit talking about my experiences. So even someone who's going through that, who's going to therapy, who has been part of it for a while, can deal with that. I just tried to talk about my experiences more, and so I can fight against that stigma and what I was, some, what half of my family taught me and my feelings towards that. So yeah, don't think that I'm on a different level than you. I struggle with this too. And I hope that I'm using this too as a way to open up more. And so I hope that this makes people feel more comfortable talking about that. So self-care. What comes to mind when you hear self-care? Parks and Rec. Oh, nice. So I'd like to apologize. It looks like some people wanted to pull a full sentence. So I see like Parks and Rec, I think. So I'm sorry for that. If people are trying to put a sentence in, I would have liked you. I see exercise is a huge one for people. Essential oils was, I can tell, another one. Massages, food, meditating, reflecting, growth, de-stressing. So these are all amazing examples of self-care. In the next slide, I'll talk about how some of these relate to certain parts of your life. You're free to keep putting words while I'm talking. Some things relate to certain parts of your life and certain self-care examples, and others are another one. I think spending time with family was another one. Drawing. Okay. I would like to point out too that self-care and mental health are very related. So that's why oftentimes you hear people say self-care for mental health, because they're closely related. And a lot of these activities can be anxiety, and they are able to lower your anxiety. So that's another reason why they're connected. Anyone else need to add any more words? These are great. Thank you for sharing these. Anyone else? Anyone would like to share their favorite self-care activity?
Sleep.
Sleep. Great.
For me, I like going outside and like talking to different people, and that kind of makes me happy.
Nice. Interacting with others, right? Getting that social self-care.
For sure.
Elizabeth raised her hand.
Yes, I think one of the things that I like to do when I do self-care is to do like things for myself that'll like help me feel that'll help me feel good. Like I'll go ahead and do like facials, or I'll go ahead and do like a hair mask, or I'll exfoliate. And it really just it makes me feel new when I do things like that. So it really does help.
Thank you. Taking that time for yourself, right? Your self-care is about you. What's making you happy? What's de-stressing you? So, especially right now with the quarantine, right? It's like it's finding that self-care time. And I hope that everyone is kind of able to practice this while at home. I know some of these are kind of hard, maybe possibly exercise are a little hard for people. Meditating could take time for people, and pampering and shopping. And yes, shopping for sure, because we really can't do anything. But after this, I'm hoping you're able to go back to that self-care that you've been doing. So self-care, this is by World Health Organization. The words I want to point out is maintain health and to cope with illness and disabilities. It's not only for people who have illnesses or disability. The average person also can benefit from self-care, but it's to be able to do this without the support of a healthcare provider. So it's ways for you to be able to maintain that. Even if you are someone who goes to therapy, you still can practice self-care outside of that. So it is a broad concept and it encompasses many factors like your hygiene. Showering can be a form of self-care. Nutrition, eating, like are you eating healthy? Are you eating what you usually eat? Are you making sure you do eat the amount of times that you're supposed to? Lifestyle that goes with leisure, how Marianne said, talking to people. Elizabeth said I know Elizabeth did say that. Someone said shopping, but you also said massages and things like that. And the environmental factors, such as like your living condition, your social habits, like are your living conditions safe for you? That can go with your self-care. Social and economic factors, your income level, that can impact whether or not you're able to go shopping, whether or not you're able to create these activities. And so I think sometimes when people say self-care, they say like, buy this, buy this, buy this, but many people cannot afford that. So it's about finding other ways to create that self-care. Are you able to, someone put draw, paint, maybe decorate? Are you able to, like, you've bought something in the past, you're gonna just make something out of it? So it doesn't always have to be shopping. It doesn't always have to be spending money. It can be something in your own house that maybe binge watching something is your form of self-care. That can be a thing. So there are 5 types of self-care. So physical, we talked about that, kind of sleep. Are you eating right? Are you making sure to eat multiple times? Social. Marianne mentioned that she's a very social person and she gets that energy from talking to other people. Mental. So this is not, for me, first I thought mental, like just mental health, like therapy, but really it means like, are you making time for your activities? Are you finding things that mentally stimulate you? Are you doing those activities that you've been wanting to do? That is a form of self-care. Spiritual, maybe some people don't have that spiritual in their life, but it's about like, what questions do you ask yourself about how you're feeling spiritually? Are you maybe practicing your own spiritual beliefs? Are you able to get that? Maybe you're someone who just wants to read the Bible as a form of self-care. Are you making sure to do that? And emotional, it's about like how 2 people are talking. Are you having someone to talk to? Do you feel like you're holding back your feelings from other people? Is that making you feel sad and lonely because your emotional self-care is not being taken care of? And that can be, like we've talked about, that can be very hard, but it is a form of self-care. So this is the activity that I wanted to do. Thanks again, Kato, for this. It's a My Stressors activity. So before we kind of I talked about the different types of self-care. So I kind of wanted you to create these bubbles on your sheet of paper and talk about what is stressing you out specifically in your home life, in your work and school, your social life, or something else. And this will relate to the next part of the activity that I'm going to do. So I will give you about like a few minutes, about 3-4 minutes, to create this little bubble on your sheet of paper to analyze and point out what your stresses are in different parts of your life. Does everyone need a few more minutes? Elizabeth, was that you doing a thumbs up for you needing a few more minutes?
Oh, I thought it was for like saying that if we were done. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, that's fine.
Misinterpreted that sentence. Sorry.
You're free to do like Elizabeth did and put a thumbs up once you're finished. Thank you for that, Elizabeth, that idea.
You're welcome.
One more minute to kind of wrap up your overall thoughts. Unless everyone is finished and I'm missing people putting a thumbs up. Seems that I've gotten everyone saying that they're close to finishing. I mean, they're finished. So the reason why I did this activity is I wanted you to think of certain stressors in certain parts of your life, because for the next question, what are some self-care ideas that you think will go along with some of those stressors that you're struggling with? And you're free to write these down if you want, or write other people's, or do a mental note of other people's ideas. About like a minute for this. thing at the top of your lungs. Okay, so walk away from everything and find something relaxing. So I see a lot of things about making time. Even planning and journaling goes with time. You're free to keep submitting while I'm talking if you still need to. Paint and draw, that's a great idea. Take time to get ready, prioritize better, aromatherapy. These are pretty straightforward and they go at so many different aspects. Some of these go with mental and maybe spiritual. Aromatherapy could be a form of that. Planning, time. Because a lot of like when you're a student or you're just a worker, a lot of it is that time, creating that time. Is there anyone who would like to elaborate on theirs, or I can move forward if you feel that you just don't want to?
So I put more than one actually. I put
Okay.
Like 3 of them. I put take time to get ready. So that's more like for right now, like for second home, doing nothing. I don't really go anywhere, so I haven't been doing my makeup. And for me, it's not even about like looking pretty. It's about just getting ready for the day and just feeling like, okay, even if I'm gonna be at home, at least make it productive. And like me without doing my makeup is like me just not feeling so lazy and just feeling like unmotivated to do anything. So sometimes like once or twice a week, I like to take my time and do my makeup just to like or get ready, even if I'm going to be at home, just so I don't feel like I'm not doing anything. I also put sing at the top of your lungs just because I love doing that, and that's my favorite way of like releasing all my emotions. But I do that in the shower where I can act like no one can hear me when I know everyone in my house can hear me. And then I also put paint and / draw. So since my mom has an iPad since I've been home, I got an Apple pencil just so I can draw more and not like waste paint or paper. And I've been drawing a lot, and it's just I can literally draw. Like for me, painting is it just takes so much time because I have to like wait for the paint to dry and all that. But this, I can literally draw for an hour and a half, 2 hours, and not even realize how much time has gone by. And it's just so relaxing, and I just feel like it just helps me. It has helped me so much while in quarantine.
That's great. That's amazing because quarantining is hard itself, right? It's super hard to do that. So
yeah, I feel so claustrophobic.
Yeah. So you're able to still put that singing, painting, and drawing, and your form of self-care is doing your makeup. Maybe that can go with like the social aspect or just you in general. So thank you for sharing that. So I just wanted to include a few activities and tips. Once again, I will be emailing these out. I will have a whole drive that has all these for you. Just to give you a little bit of a just like a sneak peek of it. These are the 28 mental health activities for adults and students. So there's books, there are quizzes, assignments, walking our shoes lessons. So there are multiple things, multiple besides even just activities. They mentioned Facebook groups, support groups, which is great, and World Mental Health Day activities. And this one is 31 tips to boost your mental health. So they just give you 31. Experiment, show some love to someone in your life. Take time to laugh, go off the grid, dance. So this is these are two, like I said, I will email you, and they're just something to help possibly boost your mental health because sometimes it's just a small thing. Maybe making a positive comment towards yourself or talking to someone for like 2 minutes. It can be the small things that make that difference. So this is 7 mental health activities posted from this Twitter page. And this is something you can follow on a weekly basis. Maybe instead of you want to do Mondays on Wednesdays, Tuesday, Thursday, you're free to change up what day it's happening. but these are just activities to do every day of the week so that you can feel good during this time. And even post-quarantine, you can just feel good in general. So I just wanted to kind of do an overview just to make sure that people were, I was pretty helpful and you were able to understand certain things. So was the difference between mental illness and mental health understandable? If you're free to just put a thumbs up, and you're free to ask me if you want me to elaborate on anything. Marianne, would you like me to elaborate on anything?
I think you're good. I'm not sure. I think you're good.
Okay, I just didn't notice if the thumbs up if you put one. Thank you. So were any of the different approaches of therapy unfamiliar to you, or you didn't know that multiple were used? Well, for me, I think humanistic therapy was one that I hadn't fully known, like the role playing. So one time I went and therapist did role playing with me to help me move past something, and so that was something that I didn't even know I would do. So when she told me like that we'd be doing that, I was like, oh, okay, well this is great, and it actually was pretty helpful for me. So even if none of these were like new to you or they weren't unfamiliar, I still hope that you were able to like fully get kind of the differences and just a little basic overview of that. Are there any self-care suggestions you see yourself using in the future?
I
Anyone?
really like the daily one. Sorry, if I interrupted someone.
No, you didn't.
I like the weekly one. I feel like that is something that I don't always think about. I probably think about it maybe once a week. Okay, what can I do for self-care?
Mm-hmm.
But even if I do at least something small every day, I think would help me a lot. So thank you for that one.
Oh yeah, of course. It'll kind of help you not crash. Like for me, because like sometimes you can just be overwhelmed and then you have like that crash and you realize like, oh, I'm not doing well. So like to make sure you're up on it like every single day, it can help you like stay good. Just stay not feeling so bad or anxious. You're able to just be kind of neutral. So thank you for saying that. Would anyone else like to share? Okay. Well, I'm happy that people brought the idea of, honestly, for me, shopping. So thank you for whoever put that, because I always get really cheap and I'm like, I can't spend money on this. And so I need to practice that, letting myself shop for things and to have a little fun for myself. So I wanted to include a quote that kind of helps me. The past, I think, has helped me appreciate the present, and I don't want to spoil it by fretting about the future, by Audrey Hepburn. So like not letting the past fully get to you, and to not spend too much time worrying about the future, to appreciate the present, to appreciate the things in the past that maybe weren't good for you, and still learning to use that as lessons for you, use that as a way for you to learn, like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that, or maybe this person wasn't good in my life, and to just not worry about the future too much, to kind of go with the flow a little bit, do your planning, but also let yourself live and not feel so hard on yourself. So any questions before we end this workshop? Okay, well, thank you so much for coming. That's the end of my presentation. I hope this was helpful for you, and thank you for taking the time out to come and listen to this hour workshop. I hope that some of the self-care ideas work for you. I hope that opening up about the stigma kind of lets you reveal your own feelings about it. And I hope that you're able to get through this quarantine, since it's a really hard time for all of us, I'm sure. So thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Diane, take care.
You too.
Thank you, Sam. I love this
Bye.
presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.